Ros, welcome to the Inspired by Show.
I've actually been trying to be an entrepreneur or business owner for about 12 years. I've had 4 previous failed businesses. After those 4 didn't work out, I just decided to stay employed. I was like, do you know what? I'm not made for this. I actually loved my job. And I lost it because I was furloughed. It was in the famous pandemic known as COVID-19, but it turned into redundancy. At night, I'd be studying how to set up my own business, how to build my network. Because I had no job, I had to swim. I had to keep going.
Ros, welcome to the Inspired by Show. How are you?
Thank you so much, Chloe. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Do you know what? It feels really weird talking to you here because we've spoken every single week for the last probably nearly 6 months.
Yes.
Planning your brand new book, which is, well, as we're speaking, almost launched, but as the time that this will be released, it will be out in the public.
I know. It's so weird to be here because, I even saw you this morning on our Zoom call.
Yeah.
So to actually be on the sofa in here with you is amazing. So thanks for having me. Thank you for the journey you've been taking me through for the past 6 months. It has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's been in a really fun way, but it's been amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's been so much fun as well because you are so passionate about what you do. And let's be honest, some of the guests that we have on the show are not as well known or not really big on their own brands. But one of the reasons I love about having you on the show is you know your brand, you live and breathe your brand, even the yellow. I love it, like the chair and everything.
You got a chair for me.
I know, right?
I love it. I don't carry a chair, everyone, right? Just in case you're seeing this, I don't carry a yellow chair everywhere I go. But thank you for getting a yellow chair.
Yeah,
thank you.
I love it. And for anyone that's listening, by the way, for just a bit of visual cues, Ros is known for her yellow clothing, which I love because then you go to an event and people see you and hear you. Where did this brand that people now know as Manuka Media, you've obviously got the money, honey, the B is very prominent in all your branding. How did you come up with your brand and where are you now with that?
So just in case for the listeners who have now just heard about all this yellow clothing and the honey and the bees, I don't sell honey. Just in case. And I don't sell clothes either. So that's just part of my brand, my personal brand. But the whole concept of Manuka Media and the B and how I created this personal branding and digital marketing agency was I just wanted to bring a buzz to the industry that I was in. So I mainly focus on financial services and the property space. And we all know, talking about pensions and mortgages doesn't feel very sexy, especially on social media. And so when I was thinking about bringing a buzz to this industry and to these professionals, all I could think of was bees, right? And yellow and energy. And I wanted to be different than the blue, gray palette, right? That we often see in financial services. So I love pink. So I did end up introducing pink as well into the industry or into my brand, which is actually also seen in the industry. We've got a bit of pink in the industry, a bit of purple, but yellow, not so much. And so I just took it on. It was an accident. I was wearing a yellow dress in a picture and I was like, I'm going to put that as my LinkedIn photo. And because it stuck and people recognized it, they said, a breath of fresh air for the industry. They said a pop of yellow that this industry needed. And then they made it a brand, like the reaction the people had made it a thing. So then I had to kind of roll with it. And it's really hard to find loads of yellow things. But yeah, I just roll with it now. So yeah, that's how the yellow and the bees for me, it represents like, the bees are so underestimated, right? They're so valuable to how the world works and how I imagine. So I'm a busy bee, right? I'm working myself independently, but although bees work really well on their own, they're actually part of a community. And bees form such a wider part of what this world is about. So that's how I see myself. I'm doing my bit. I'm in my own lane. I'm over here like jumping from flower to flower. But then when I go back to the community of financial services or women or the school or whatever community I'm in, that's where the real juicy honey is made. That's where we all come together. And that's the liquid gold that comes out of it. And that's why I've built the brand around bees and honey.
Oh, I love that. And do you know what? That's interesting because I always come on the show and I always think, what do I want to know? Because I know so much about your book. And don't worry, by the way, we are going to go into the book because I know people don't always know about the book if they haven't listened to it or read it yet. But I find it fascinating because I actually didn't know that about you. So
Oh,
that's a
really?
really, really good start to us getting to know each other and our conversation, Ros. So you've got this brand now. Obviously, you run the incredible Manuka Media agency and you've done really well with that. But from our conversations, I already know this about you. That wasn't exactly the thing you originally started doing. So tell us a bit about Ros before Manuka Media and what sort of put you on this trajectory.
Great. So have you ever made a plan and then the plan doesn't go to plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had a plan for my career, my future, and where I was at. And I'd written it down, you know, in my journals and in my book and on my vision board. And the plan didn't go to plan. And that's why I'm here. It was an accident, because had the plan gone well, according to my plan, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. So this was born out of the plan going wrong. And it's one of my biggest lessons in life and in business. That is, if you are in a place right now that feels wrong, then it probably is about to go right. And everything you've ever wanted but better is about to happen. And that's what happened for me. So where I was before, I was working for a bank. I was a business development manager. So I was responsible for making the bank a lot of money, bringing in a lot of deals and mortgage applications. And I was loving it. I actually loved my job, which was sad at the time, because I was like, I'm losing a job I finally love. Like, it took me so long to find a job I loved. And finally I found one. And I was like, why? And I lost it because I was furloughed. It was in 2020. I was during, you know, the famous pandemic known as COVID-19. And I was furloughed, and I thought this was only going to be a short run, but it turned into redundancy. And it was in the middle of lockdown. So being made redundant when the world isn't normal, I'm sure redundancy for anybody is hard, but, you know, going through it when in a time when you can't just go back out there and get another job, or it just didn't feel, you know, everything was just not normal. So out of that, I had a choice. You know, we've always had a business at the back of our mind. I'm sure lots of people are like, oh, when I have time, or, you know, when I've saved up enough money, I'm gonna start my own business. And I thought, well, I've lost my job. I haven't got the safe paycheck that keeps you in a job. So now what's my excuse? If I'm out there free, Lone Ranger, what am I going to do? What else is holding me back? So that's when I decided to start my own business. But then the universe tested me many, many times to see if I was really, that's what I like to say, you know, the universe, to see if I was actually really serious about taking this business on. And that was interesting, because I had to believe in myself more than I did to start. I had to believe myself that I could see it through, because once I did decide to start a business, guess what? My phone started ringing with job opportunities. And I was like, why now? Why are you offering me this job now? That in my head, I'm like, I've planned the business out now. So I had to reject a lot of high paying jobs. You know, they were saying, right, Ros, you know, we heard you got made redundant at XYZ. Are you looking for a job? And I was like, where were you 6 months ago? Now I'm set. Like, the business is literally registered on Companies House. I'm going. And so, yeah, it was many, many testing moments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just out of curiosity, this is totally off piece, but do you think if we weren't in the pandemic and the world hadn't stopped, do you think you would have gone down that business route, or do you think it would have been easier to just take that job offer and go, yeah, sure, I'm in, and just hop on to the next
Yeah,
thing?
no, I genuinely, there's two paths that brought me to this path. One was definitely the pandemic. You know, for me, that was a road that took me to where I am here today. And the other path was my backstory or my history, that I've actually been trying to be an entrepreneur or business owner for about 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. For about 12 years, I've been practicing at this, waiting for this moment. And the moment was never coming. I've had 4 previous failed businesses. Let's call them failed. They you know, they served its purpose, but let's face it, they weren't profitable enough for me to keep going with them. And after those 4 didn't work out, I just decided to stay employed. I was like, do you know what? I'm not made for this. Like, clearly I'm not the risk taker And even though I am taking risks, they're not working out for me. So do you know what? I've got a really nice job now. I get paid well. I've got the nice shiny BMW sitting on the drive because that was a company car that I could drive. I've got everything I need, right? And this was funny because again, if you're a person that believes in the universe, God, whatever you want, right? I was 30 in 2020. It was February 2020 and I turned 30. I was at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai celebrating my 30th birthday. At the time, my husband now, but at the time we were boyfriend and girlfriend. We were together. We had a house together. And I was like, do you know what? I think I've smashed it. I'm 30. I think I got this. Like, what's everyone panicking about? Like, I've got this. I've got a nice job. I've got a car. I've got the house. I've got my man. Like, life is great. And I wrote that in my journal. I know the date exactly when I wrote it. I wrote that in my journal. And I think God that day was having a real laugh. He must have been looking down at me and he was like, you have no idea what's coming, my love. In March 2020, you're going to be furloughed. Then you're going to lose your job. Then, yeah, all of that then happened. So I don't know if it was my fault that I jinxed what happened after that event. But I think I was so comfy and so set in like thinking I'd made it that the universe just said, no, this is not how it goes for you, my love. This is not how the story goes. And that's what I mean by the plan didn't go to plan, because I thought I'd made it. I was settled. And that's when, things shook me up. So yes, that's the journey that brought me here today. I believe that.
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that story because you're right. It's like so many times, like a lot of people would have been in the same situation as you, failed business 1, 2, 3, 4 and gone, do you know what? I've not got what it takes. And they're probably listening to this right now, watching this thinking, yeah, and that I've just said, I'll settle and I'll just do that. I hate the word just. I'll just do that. And you just did that and you thought that was good. And now looking back, how do you feel about the journey you've been on with Manuka Media? Now, I just wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to share a quick message with you. Now, I've been hosting these interviews with Inspired by Show for a while now, and I've been loving all of the great feedback from our listeners. And it really means a lot when you all share from listening to these episodes, watching these episodes, share your incredible feedback. And I love that you love it as much as we do. Now, my mission for the Inspired by Show is to inspire others to challenge the norm, share their story, knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable and, shock horror, take the mask off and be raw and real. So I have a favour to ask. Can you help me on this mission by sharing this episode with someone who you think needs to hear this message? Maybe there's a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know that would really benefit from hearing this inspiring story. If you could do that to help us, help even more people to challenge the norm and push themselves out of their own comfort zone, then I'd really appreciate it. So if you haven't already, share this episode with a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know would benefit. Now, back to the episode.
Do you know what? I don't regret any part of the journey. Everything was there for a reason. Like I said, I loved my previous job. I loved my previous employer. I loved everything I've done up until now. Like, even if it wasn't right, everything has led me to this moment. Even those 4 businesses, like there were times when, in fact, in my latest job, with my last employer, there was an event, and it was about public speaking, and they were like, sorry, Ros, where did you learn this? Like, how do you know about storytelling, about this and that? They were like, you're a BDM, like business development manager. Like, with all due respect, like, how have you had the experience to do that? And I was like, but you don't see what I do outside of my 9 to 5. Outside of my 9 to 5, this is what I mean by 12 years of trying to be a business owner. I used to finish work, and then as everyone was getting off the train coming back from London, from their commute to London, I was getting on it on the way to London, because I would go to a Tony Robbins event, or I would go to some other inspirational, like entrepreneurial event, networking event. So instead of networking in my local area, I'd get into London, go and find a networking event there, whether it was in property or anything else. And I would be basically, at night, I'd be studying how to set up my own business, how to build my network. And then by day, I would do my job. So yes, a lot of that required me to do public speaking at events. I'd already done so many gigs by that point that my company didn't even use me for. So when they realized I could do it, they were like, all right, we didn't realize you could do this. So I guess all along, I was always doing what I was meant to be doing. I was just doing it behind the scenes and, a little bit on the side, that side hustle. I've always, in those 4 businesses were side hustles. They were never fully you know, full companies that I was just running full time. But that was the thing, you know, do you think they could have worked out had I believed in myself then, quit my job and jumped into those businesses? Would I have made a go at it then? You know, that's something I ask myself, because I think, well, this time round, how comes this business worked when I was fully in it because I had no job? I had to swim. I had to keep going. But who'll know? We'll never know what would have happened to the other 4 in the past, because they're gone now. But they served their purpose for today.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. And like you say, if you'd have gone down that route, you wouldn't be here today, and Manuka Media wouldn't be what it is today. Now, Rose, I'm curious, because I didn't actually know this about you, your passion for entrepreneurship from such a young age, really. Where did that love for entrepreneurship come from? Where did that hunger come from?
Everyone asked that question, and not just to me, but to every, you know, to every entrepreneur. We want to know where it came from, because if we know where it came from, maybe we can go and find it. We're like, oh, there it is. It's hidden there. Let's go find it. I don't believe in that style. I don't believe it came from anywhere other than just a series of events. Like, I remember when I was trying to answer this question for someone else, I then later, I think one day, you know, in bed, I was like, oh my God, I remember my first business idea, right? I was in Sicily still. So that's where I was born. That's where I'm from. And I was probably about 6 or 7. And I remember having, again, this diary. Who taught me to have a diary? I don't know, like a journal. Who would teach me? Back then, I wasn't watching The Secret, or, you know, I just had this journal, like this feeling of writing something down. And I remember designing dresses, like really random, guys. I am not in fashion. Literally, I don't know where this came from as a child. But anyway, I was designing outfits, and I remember pricing those outfits. Like, how random. I don't even know what numbers I must have used. There must have been like, this dress costs 685 million. I must have wrote so many. I don't know how I priced things. But I remember setting up a little shop that I designed, and then I'd price things. And then I realized, oh, I'm going to do children's clothes as well, because as a 7-year-old, I wasn't designing children's clothes. I was designing like mature women's clothes. I don't know how I did that.
I love that.
Again, yeah, I was like, it was literally like the hat, the glove, honestly. And then I designed children's stuff, and I was like, yeah, because if the mothers come in with their children, then they can buy something for their children. That business obviously didn't take off, but I remember journaling that and writing it all down. And then my first actual physical business that I had was at school. And I don't know if it was arts and crafts week. I don't know what was happening at school, but I went home. I got all the socks I could find, cut all the foot of the socks, right? I don't know whose they were, but all the colourful socks I could find. I cut off the foot, and then I stitched the rest of the sock, and I made it into a phone case. Did anyone used to do that at school? That was a thing. No? Like, literally, you used to like slip your phone in it, and then the sock would protect your phone.
Yeah.
And so obviously back then it was all like the little Nokias and things like that. And my first customer was my grandmother, because she saw me like, she used to be a seamstress. So she saw me like stitching these things together. And then she was like, what are you doing with them? I was like, oh, I'm selling them as phone cases for like £2. She was like, oh, I'll buy one. Guys, I kid you not, she still has that sock today. And I saw it the other day. She was, you know, the Italian cafetiere, the mocha. She was using it as a little the spout handle, and I was like, Nonna, that's her name, like Nonna's grandmother. I was like, what are you using there for that? She was like, oh, it's just so that I don't burn my hands, but this is your sock that you sold me years. Oh my gosh, like the most incredible. And then now she's got another sock that she keeps her not business cards, her credit cards in.
Oh,
cutest thing. So I don't know where that came from, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you always been a high achiever though? Because it does sound like you're the sort of person that gets an idea and you're like, I'm going to make this happen. Have you always been like that?
From what I'm told, yes. Yeah, I think I am. But I can see where it came from. As in, I know, from a memory, I know what moment in my life I realized that I had to make something, or like, I don't know, achieves. I think that transition coming from Sicily to England at a young age really disturbed my confidence a little bit, because by the time I was 8, I was like this sassy Sicilian little madam. I mean, I was already designing mature women's clothing. I mean, where I was going, right? So I was already my own self. Like, I already had a personality. I already knew what I was doing. And then when I got to this country, I couldn't speak English and I didn't understand what was going on in the classroom. And that was when I had my first imposter moment. My imposter syndrome kicked in because the teacher sat me next to the smartest girl in the class. And I had to copy everything this girl did because I couldn't take cues or instructions. I had no idea what was going on. And I think that living in someone else's shadow, doing what she did, you know, if there was like an art project, I didn't know what the instructions were. So if she drew a monkey, I drew a monkey. If she drew like, you know, a tree, I'd draw a tree. So there was no self-expression. I'd lost all my self-expression for at least the first 6 to 12 months of being in this country because I had to learn English first. Then when I started to understand the cues and my own language and then actually speak 2 of them, then that's when I was like, actually, I have my own voice back again. I know who I am and I can now translate it into different languages. So I think that's where it came from, this like feeling of, because I remember distinctly feeling held back, really held back because I didn't understand. So I was like, I have to do everything she does. Yeah.
It's so interesting though, because so many people can probably relate to that from so many different angles, you know, when we're growing up, and so many experiences are so formative to us like that. Have you ever felt that again since then, you know, feeling like maybe coming into, for example, we're in the similar industry, which is, you know, building a personal brand, speaking, podcasting, there's a lot of noise, you know, how have you felt that show up again or in other ways?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's definitely come back again because we're in the media space. Like, we're always on social media. We've got our photos, our videos, we've got our own podcasts. And so it's really hard not to compare yourself. And I'm really grateful of that story of me and that girl from school, that I can relate today to that and say, be yourself. Like, I don't have to compare myself anymore, even though I might slip into that every now and again. I know how to catch myself because I've learned from a previous experience that everyone's got their own moment to shine. Everyone's got their own space in this world. Everyone's got their own voice. Hence, going back to the bees, at the end, the honey is made by lots of thousands of bees having been out there using their own energy in their own little bodies to bring back the pollen. That's the nectar, that sweet juice at the end comes from that. So I kind of see myself as, this is my lane, this is my space, I'm doing my bit, and I don't attach the success to, oh, well, how many followers do you have in comparison to me? How many downloads do you have on your podcast in comparison to me? Because, hey, I'm not trying to hold you back. I want you to thrive. I want you to win. And I'm doing my bit as well. And that's what I call at Manuka Media positive pollination. It's everyone positively doing their bit and impacting their community, their network, their connections. We're all doing our bit. And my highlight of the day is when I don't actually know how many followers I have on my podcast, right? But the highlight for me of the day is when I get a message saying, that podcast today really touched me. That's it. Just start one message from one person who I've reached. And if it wasn't for the podcast, I don't know how many of you are listening, but it could just reach this one person, and that ripple effect is done. Like, that the universe will then take its course and it will do what it needs to do. But that first step was me just speaking. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I think that's really beautiful, Ros, because it's really clear to me. Obviously, I know you quite well through publishing and editing a book, but to anyone listening, because you can see how your passion for building a brand and being seen and being heard from your childhood, from those experiences, has come into today. Because I find it fascinating. One of the things we resonated when we first met each other is our background in the finance world. You know, you were in banks, I was in accounting. And I remember when we planned to publish your book, and I was telling you that, by the way, I'm a chartered accountant. You were like, what? How are you now a book publisher? And I was the same to you, like, how are you now in media, you know? And I think sometimes we go on these amazing turns. How did you find it bringing in both parts of your world, like your brand and you wanting to be seen, and this flavor and the buzz that you have, with also then bringing in your corporate experience to create Manuka Media?
Yes, excellent. Yeah, really nice balance, because I have been in financial services for nearly a decade now. So again, that was an industry that I fell into by total accident, as it goes. You know, first job, I was like, okay, I like it here, I'm going to stay. And so I was already blending into the corporate world of financial services. I got to understand the subject, the topics, the products, the people. And without knowing it, I was my original client, as in I was my own Manuka Media client, because as a business development manager, whether I was working for a brokerage or a lender, or in the past 10 years, anywhere I've been working, I've been telling my story along the way the whole time. So I would, for example, day to day, talk about the lender products, be like, this is what we do, yay. And then in the next post, I'd be talking about, I've just had a meeting with XYZ brokerage and I've just helped them do this in their business. And then the next day I'd say, oh, we've got a team meeting, we're playing darts today. So I would be documenting my journey, and I was already building a personal brand before I needed to build a personal brand. I didn't realize I was building one. I just realized that eventually, by the time I'd posted one thing and another, people started to get to know me. I was wearing the lender's badge and I was wearing the lender's label, but actually I was the face and the voice of the connection and the relationship. So when that was taken away, this is when I thought I'd lost everything during the pandemic. I was like, oh my gosh, that's it, I'm cancelled. I literally thought I was cancelled out of the financial services industry. I thought no one's ever going to remember me. I've lost my phone. So someone came over dressed in like all the PPE gear. It literally looked like PPE just vomited on him. He had forensic outfit on because it was like at the beginning of the pandemic, and he was like, I'm here to collect your car, your laptop, your phone. It was quite it was a bit horrible how it happened. And they thought they were going to give it back in 3 weeks, but I was like, nah, that's clearly not going to happen, is it? Right? So everything got taken away. So that phone had all my contacts, all my connections. We weren't allowed during furlough to talk to any of our clients because of furlough. So I was really isolated, and that's the best they could do. Obviously, no one knew what to do. This was a new, like, I don't blame them for it. I come in peace, and they know this, and there's a nice story at the end of it. They know this, and we're good friends, but it was very isolating. I felt really disconnected from everybody I'd built a relationship with for 7 years. And so I just didn't know how I was going to get myself back into it. And thankfully thanks LinkedIn for existing, I was able to just tell my story during furlough. So I wasn't allowed to talk about work. I wasn't allowed to connect with my clients or my ex-clients. And so what could I talk about? So I was talking about what I was doing, with fitness, what I was doing with charities that I was volunteering for during the pandemic. So I was an online volunteer for several charities. I was talking about the ups and downs. I was talking about the random, cupcakes I was making because I was so bored. And that got me back into the media and back to people who were like, oh, that's where she's gone. Gosh, where's she been? And that's what you kind of woke up that feeling of, oh, actually, I still do have a place here and people are interested in my story. And that's the rest is history.
Yeah. And one of the things, Ros, I love about your journey and your story, and obviously what's in your book. Now, for anyone who hasn't read it or tuned into it yet, it's not about Ros's story. It's not a biography. It's a genuine help book for mortgage brokers, which we're going to touch on in a second. But what I love about how you've written it is you're so, excuse my language, fucking honest. I love it. I was reading it giggling because I could hear your personality, the jokes throughout it, the banter a little bit, the honesty, and you're very direct in it as well, going, don't do that because everybody's telling you to do that, do this. When did you find that real personality come through on your social media? When did you find that real raw and authentic, like, guys, this is what it looks like behind the camera kind of angle?
Honestly, I think that comes with my passport, as in, that comes with being Italian. I think so anyway. I'm not putting anything on. I'm just naturally like that. And I have to caveat it now in a British setting. I'm, when someone says, Ros, can I just get your thoughts on? I'm like, no. Don't go there, because if you ask for my thoughts, you're going to get my thoughts. I'm like, just be careful what you ask for. If you want my opinion, you're going to get the honest truth. And I think that's what then became my brand as well. Because you wear your personal brand with everybody. You wear your personal brand with your friends, with your kids, if you've got kids, with your partner, and with your boss and your colleagues. You wear your personal brand every day. So my friends know that my personal brand is, if we want the honest truth, just ask Roz. And same with my family, you know, if they want to come to me for help or anything like that, you know, they know they'll get the truth. And that's what my clients appreciate as well, where, you know, yesterday someone was like, oh, Roz, you know, someone's been saying that I shouldn't do this with my brand because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, sorry, just so that I'm clear, who is this someone? Like, is it Bob in the pub who just thinks they can give you this unsolicited advice? Or is it someone that's like, you know, got some, and they're like, oh yeah, no, it is Bob. I'm like, yeah, well, just don't worry about that. Let's just work on like, let's work on the facts. So I think a lot of people really care about what other people think, and you need to be careful of who is doing that thinking. You know, who are you putting your weight on, right? So yeah, I like to be honest, but it might not gel with everybody, but I can't, my eyebrows can't hide it. Like, I've had no Botox, nothing on my face. So the minute you say something, my eyebrows are going to go left, right and center, and I literally can't hide it. So I have to speak the truth.
Yeah, I love it. I'm giggling because we're so similar. Like, we are so similar. And the amount of times that we've had conversations and I'm like, Roz is going to go. Or like, I'm like, uh-oh. You know, because we can't hide it. And I think that's what's really good about what you teach, Roz. And one of the things that we've bonded over is the myths and the BS in the industry, especially social media, because I think a lot of times we are putting ourselves out there. So obviously there are opinions that we're expecting to get back. What advice do you give to people or how do you even handle it, dealing with, you know, what I would call the negative Nellies, the people that have always got a negative opinion to have, and balancing which opinion do we listen to?
It's a good question. How do I deal with it? Do you know what, guys? I'm not saying I deal with it. I don't deal with it. I don't, because it depends who it comes from. Like, if it comes from the trolls of social media, that is like a hidden account, you know, someone who, because when I was posting during furlough, people were saying things like, I hate your voice and you look like you've had surgery, or actually suggesting I have surgery on my face. But I was like, but who is user 1268575? I'm like, I don't know, but like, don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, that's the stuff I don't care about. Even if they pick a point about myself that I don't like, I'm like, who is this person? I don't care. But the ones I do care about is when it catches me off guard. It's the ones that I believed in. It's the ones that I spoke highly of. It's the ones that made me feel like there was a couple that have put me on a pedestal, right? And made me feel like we're solid, so solid that I even invited them to my wedding. And like, you know, I thought like, we're friends. It's like if you just turned around, Chloe, and just suddenly like stabbed me in the back, I will go all Don Corleone on you. Like, literally, how dare you disrespect me? Because I've given you I give you so much trust and love, and I like hype you up, and then when you let me down from such a high pedestal, as in we're both up there together, like not just me, like as in we're up there together, our relationship is strong, and you let me down, that I take that really hard, and that might take me a while to get over. And yeah, there's been times where I've been, I don't even know if to say it out loud on a podcast, but yeah, there's been times I've been called things that I'm like, why did you say that? Like, why would that come from you? Like, why did you do this to me? And it feels really hard, really hard. So I don't know do you know what? One thing I did do, if I need to give you a strategy or a top tip, it's not going to be applicable to everybody, I promise you. This is going to sound really like off piece, but I pray. Like, I can't say any other way. Like, I pray to understand, like, what is the lesson in this? Like, there's going to be a bigger picture. This means something. Like, it didn't just happen by accident. Like, what does it mean? And I just ask for, like, first, patience with it and forgiveness. I'm like, please just help me forgive. Like, help me be forgiving. Don't have to forget. Forgiving and forgetting is two different things. I'm not forgetting anything. Gonna keep that in my back pocket, but how can I just live with peace? Because if that toxic thing is living in my body, that's going to affect me negatively, that's your problem. What you've just said, that's a you problem. You keep that in your belly, let that stew in you. I'm not letting it affect me. So whilst it did bite and pinch, I try and like find a way of peace with it. Maybe they need help. If they can talk that foul, like if that stuff comes out of their mouth, that they need assistance.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're right. It's not, the word praying isn't necessarily applicable to everyone, but I think actually the concept is, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. And so I always pray in my way through my meditation, my journaling, and it's all the same thing. It's just about believing that there's always a lesson. And I'm always saying like, what's the lesson in this? And it might be a good thing, it might not be a good thing, but there's always a lesson. And I think if we approach life with an open mind, that we're forever students, we're forever learning, we're forever kids in some way, shape or form. We're always the one that's brand new, first day at school in so many different ways, you know, and it's just about pivoting and adapting to that.
So true.
Which you've done really well. You know, you've adapted in so many different ways. You know, Manuka Media is, I mean, how long ago was that? Nearly 3 years now?
What's the date today?
September the 14th, I think we're recording.
14th, okay, yeah.
15th.
So it will be my 3-year anniversary, September 22nd.
Wow.
Yes.
No way. That's amazing.
That's the day I announced on LinkedIn, hey, everyone, you know I lost my job? Yeah, I've just started a business. Yeah.
Wow. So you're nearly 3 years in, and in that you've helped loads of clients with their content, with their social media strategy, with everything about that. You've also launched your own podcast, Money Honey, which is just, it sounds so fantastic. And now you're writing a book. So, you know, you've achieved so much, and let's say you finished writing it a while ago. What made you want to write the book?
It's another thing where we say, oh, I've got a book in me. Like, I'd love to write a book one day. And this one day, I was like, no, day one. Like, day one begins now. And sometimes it's good to wait because I needed to wait for the thing to write about, right? But I've been writing this book from 3 years ago, you know, just collecting all my ideas. And, you know, I've binned a few manuscripts. Even the one that I brought to you, we actually started from scratch, didn't we? So I was like, no, okay, let's start again. And it helped to write it all out. And if you're thinking about writing a book, you have to write it out, because otherwise, if it's still in your head and not out on paper, your head hasn't got any more space for the good stuff to come in. So I binned my first manuscript, but it was already written. And so just put that to one side, and then the new stuff just started flowing. And that was reason number one why I wanted to write a book, was for me to turn that day one into one day. The second reason was that, again, back to that philosophy of positive pollination in my business, which is, right, I work with a lot of one-to-one clients, okay, because I love that intimacy. You know, that one-to-one, just all about you. Like if I'm working with you, it's about you. And I thought, but I want to help the industry. I want to help the globe. I want to help everybody as much as I can. And there's only one of me. So how do I duplicate my efforts and put myself out there so that more people have access to me, even at a much smaller, reduced budget? If it's just buying a book, then I could be on the shelves and on the desk of so many other mortgage advisors and financial advisors who perhaps haven't had the one-to-one access with me, but they now have it in the book. And so the quicker I can educate the IFAs and the mortgage advisors to learn the principles in the book, the more the positive pollination is impacting our society. Because if they learn how to put themselves out there on social media and educate our society has then got access to them on how to make better financial decisions. Because, you know, do you have a trusted mortgage broker or IFA that you go to? Do you have like someone on speed dial that you're like, whenever I want to make a financial decision, I know who to go? You don't.
No, I've been through 3 or 4 mortgage brokers in all the different property deals I've done for one reason or another. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this is how crucial it is for you to get yourself out there, because people like Chloë, I can't believe you can't think of one person you're like, yeah, this person. Yeah, that's sad. That's sad, because I've got access to the most elite financial advisors, the best mortgage brokers, the most passionate protection advisors that will protect you, your kids, your home, your family, your health. And that's selfish of me to keep that from you. That is very selfish. And it's selfish for these advisors not to put themselves out there, because they are not helping people like you by playing small. You have to play big in any industries. And this is pharmaceuticals, beauty, fashion. What is playing small going to do? Like, you're not reaching the people that need to hear from you. And people like you are waiting to hear from the golden advisor at any moment now.
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful what you're sharing, Roz, especially with representing in a way as well, because you're, again, something that we related on, connected with a lot, was the fact that you've come into this industry as, to be honest, a female in a very dominated industry. You've now come in your own skin, in your own business, not under a bank or under another umbrella.
Yeah.
You've come in wearing your bright yellow, and you're not, I love it because you're not apologetic about any of it. How was it for you standing on your own 2 feet as a female, as obviously Italian? So it sounds like, you have got that sass in your words from earlier. How was it for you? And have you struggled at all being, very female in a very masculine world?
Oh, wow. Female in a masculine world. Yeah. Women in male trades. Yeah. That's typically how I'm seen, because I'm in financial services or property or construction. I've been in construction as well. So those industries, I guess, because I've done it for a while, I got used to it. But actually, there are so many phenomenal women in this industry. Like, that's why I started the Money Honey podcast. And they are quietly successful. They do what they need to do. They are successful. They're talent. There's so much talent, which is why I started the podcast, because I wanted to showcase that talent and give a voice to the unheard voices of the industry. But the men, 99% of my clients are men. I love the men. Like, I love men. Like, it's not like I don't have anything like, there's no propaganda, or my podcast is not about shaming anybody. It's actually about celebrating everybody. And I have had obviously those incidences. Like, I used to go on a construction site with, from the office, I used to be dressed up like in office attire, and then I'd be on a construction site with like my high vis and hard hat. Of course you get those comments, but look, sometimes, and it's never gone too far. That's the key. Maybe I haven't let it go too far, because I'm very like, no, let's get serious. Like, I can put my foot down there. So I think you have to hold your own in this space, but you also have to allow people to also find their journey. And sometimes they don't actually mean it badly. Sometimes I can tell that there's a mortgage broker that meets me at an awards ceremony and wants to compliment me and say, oh, you look fantastic, you look great, because obviously I'm all dressed up and probably wearing yellow feathers, so I'm not, and he's really apprehensive about giving me a compliment, because now we're like scared of saying anything. And he's like, oh, Roz, you look well, I'm like, come on, you want to say like, just don't be afraid of that. I can take a compliment. So yeah, I'm just really cool with the lads. Like, really, like, they know where the line is. I know how to set that line. I know how to hold my own. And if someone were to go out, I think they don't go out of line, because they know I'd be like, what? Excuse me? So I think that's the fear. But please don't fear it. Please don't fear financial services, property, construction, because the men have actually been my biggest cheerleaders. Like, amazing support. Honestly, it's I can't speak for what it was like 20 years ago, but yeah, revolutionary from what I can see. And from all the women I've interviewed on the Money Honey, like, this is happening. It's happened. It's amazing.
Good. I love it. And I think it's so important, because, as you said, it's about having forgiveness from what may have been in the past. And even if it has experience, I've definitely experienced it in the past, sounds like you have, in various shapes and forms. It's about letting that go and not holding that. Because I think a lot of women, I run Queens in Business, female orientated community. And a lot of people, when I started that, thought that I was like male hating. It wasn't at all. We have men who come and speak at our events. We have male awards, and like everyone, like the male panel at our events gets the most people watching, because it's a couple of hundred women in an audience and a male panel, and the women are like, I want to ask them the questions, and it is fucking fantastic. We love it. But it's about knowing that there's a place for both, and it's about representing, like you say, asking the right questions to both sides of it, and also forgiving what has happened in the past. And similar to what you've experienced, I know a lot of what you've been on since then. How have things been now with your previous employer and with the journey that you've been on in Manuka Media?
Yes. So just before we go on to talking about the twist in this story, because there's a really beautiful twist, I just want to make a point about, we're talking about men and women. Happy to have that conversation, but we're so behind. it's not about men and women anymore. And we need to start, like, we're still trying to catch up in financial services, talking about the men and the women. But it's like, yeah, we're non-binary now. Like, there is like a whole new space here that we need to hold that space for these, for everybody, for anyone who identifies as anyone or anything. We're not there yet. And so we're still stuck on speaking about men and women, and we've got so much work to still do, and it's not being done. So with the Money Honey, I hope to bring more gender diversity and more diversity in general from all backgrounds. And that's already happened. We've had lots of people talking about their Indian heritage, you know, the Black community. We've had, what else have we had? I've been speaking about, you know, the culture difference between, you know, Italian and English, that there's a difference there. So yeah, there's still a lot of catching up to do. But anyway, the twist of when a plan doesn't go to plan. And this is what I mean by praying, or this is what I mean by ask yourself, what is the lesson? What is going to come of this? And trust that if the plan doesn't go to plan, there is something bigger in store for you. It's not over. This is not how it ends. And if you believe that, then your actions will help you to build that magic. So for example, if I didn't believe this and I got made redundant and I had reacted badly, thrown my toys out the pram and started, you know, really battling with my ex-employer, I would have burnt a lot of bridges. And I would have missed the biggest opportunity of my life 3 years later because I didn't do that, because I believe that things happen for a reason. We've ended on very amicable terms. We are supporting each other digitally, and out there in the world, we support each other. But what's even sweeter still is that 3 years later, my ex-employer has sent me a check to be a keynote speaker at their event.
Wow. That's amazing. It's like it's literally like what you would dream when you get in that situation.
If you'd said to me, Ros, look, we're going to make you redundant, and in 3 years' time, we're going to pay you to be a speaker at our event, I'd be like, yeah, all right, mate. You're just saying that just to make me go quietly and happily. But they didn't say that, because you don't know what the future holds. There is, and they probably didn't know that this was going to happen. They were watching me. They've been watching me for 3 years, and I've delivered. And then they got in touch and they literally said the words, we've been watching you. We can't think of anybody else that we'd like at this event to speak. And it was paid. Like, that's the magic. It's like, I can't believe it. Like, my employer turned into my client.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, for anyone that's, you know, going through challenges right now, the lessons here are never make things toxic, always remain respectful. And I've definitely had similar situations to that as well. And I think it's when we're going through difficult times, it's so easy to go into the victim mode, and then you create the villain. We're the victim, they're the villain. And if you treat them like that, they remain like that. Whereas for you to have the professionalism to go through that, I mean, they came to your house and took your phone, your car, you know, and that is so alienating through a difficult time in the world anyway. But the fact that you've then come the other side of that, and now, like you said, you're getting paid to speak from at their event, not only does that show the actual relationship you have with them, but also the power in building your brand. Because if you'd have done that quietly, which a lot of people do, a lot of people decide to just go, you know, oh, I'll start my business quietly. I don't want them to know, because just in case I fail, what if anyone notices? And you've gone on and gone, okay, well, I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yes. And you know what I did? I've just literally remembered while sitting here, I thought of this before. I've just remembered that on the week before I announced that I was starting my business, as a way to say goodbye to my employer, to announce that I was being made redundant, because I left a week space. I couldn't wait any longer, Chloe. I was literally like, right, I'm going to announce I've been made redundant, but I've got my comeback story already. Like, I literally know how to come back. I've done it. I've been working behind the scenes. So when I announced that I was being made redundant and I was saying farewell to my employer, I made a video of a collage of all our pictures. So so that was my gift to them. It was like, and to show the world, hey, like, this is okay. Like, I've lost my job, no hard feelings with this company. Look at my amazing memories. And I put a video together with a bit of music, and all my colleagues like commented saying, because they were also up for redundancy, they, you know, everyone was in that same space. And they're like, Ros, it's been amazing. Good luck with everything you do. And, you know, that we all really pulled together to help each other. We created like a LinkedIn. No, I didn't create it, but one of my ex-colleagues created a LinkedIn group for all the redundancies across all the industries that could join and just try and find a job. Yeah, that was amazing. And that's what I mean by, if you believe that the plan was always meant to be that way, then your actions will follow suit. You won't be the victim. You won't be toxic. You won't be aggressive. You'll be like, okay, not ideal, but let's go with it. Like, what's next? Like, be excited. Like, if the plan doesn't go into plan, be like, right, well, what's better then? If that wasn't meant to be, what's better?
Yeah. Do you know what I find really interesting about that story? And you kind of, it's going to sound really weird, but hear me out here. You kind of reminded me of me when I went through my biggest breakup, right? So what you did in that moment, and you touched on it there, is you recorded a video to tell the world that it's okay. And I find a lot of us go through challenges and we feel like we need to make everyone else feel okay with the challenge. It's like, I'm okay with it, so I want to make sure you're okay. And I did the exact same thing, not a video, but the same thing with one of my exes who cheated on me. And it's in my book, I won't go into it too much detail, but I ended up going on a night out that I didn't want to go on, just so people could see us together, so that they felt more comfortable. And I remember, and when I processed it, actually recorded my audiobook, because I then had to read the story as well as write the story, I was reflecting going, why the fuck did I feel that I needed to do that for them? And isn't it amazing how we go through, and obviously it's ended up really good for your situation. It's like sometimes we feel like we need to say things for others so that they're okay, not necessarily, but putting ourselves first.
That is, sorry you had to go through that, but at the same time, I'm not sorry, because I know how phenomenal your life is right now. And I know that you've got your own ups and downs, but sometimes, you know, we're quick to say to people, oh, I'm so sorry he did that. And you're like, no, mate, like, you know, I'm glad he did that, because I've been cheated on before. And it brought me closer to the man I have today in my life. And I married him because I know exactly what I don't want in all those situations, whether it's a bad job or a bad partner or a bad burger, whatever it is you ate or did, you know, like, oh, I'm never drinking that again, or I'm never going there again. And I love that that forms who we are. I find that a lot of people today, right, for the Gen X and Z out there, actually, don't kill me for this, right? Don't come at me. But I feel like I have a Gen Z person in my life, and I feel like they're too cautious. They don't want to get it wrong. So they want the right partner the first kiss. And I'm like, no, you have to kiss a lot of frogs. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to be seen to have lots of partners. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to find your person, right? You don't get it right the first time. They're trying to nail their first job, right? The first job has to be the job that has the slide coming through from the toilet to the office, and they want, like, you know, the pool table and the drinks that they go after. I'm like, no, maybe the first job that you have has to be this shitty little local village job that you do that you don't want to do, but it actually teaches you everything you need for the bigger job. So, like, I think by getting everything wrong and by everything going wrong, we got everything right.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, everything's a step in the right direction, but we don't feel like, I always say to people, nothing's ever right or wrong. It just is. It's not a wrong step or a right step. It's just the step that is on our trajectory. We can't go back, you know, we can't press the undo key and it all vanish and we start again. So I think you're right. I think a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves to have their shit together. And actually, if you'd have probably written down, when you started Manuka Media, this is what success looks like, it probably would look very different. And you probably wouldn't have thought of, I want to get paid to be a keynote speaker at that event.
Never. I would never write, I want my ex-employer to pay me to speak at their event. I mean, how arrogant is that? Like, that would be too much of an arrogant goal, but it happened. And sometimes, so I have a coach now, because it's been a while. Like, I've been coaching myself through books and podcasts and, you know, The Secret and you know, I read lots of things and I coach myself through life, you know, that quiet word you need to have with yourself. And so lately I hired a new coach, as someone who is going to keep me accountable and keep me on track with goals and how I'm feeling, and just it's someone who I can just talk to that isn't like related to me. I don't know if you have one.
Oh yeah.
Like a life coach or something. Yep. So anyway, he was like, what are your goals? I'm like, what are my goals? Because lately I've learned that when I set a goal, I'm actually not aware of, I feel like I'm blocking the bigger power that could come off the back of it, because I set a goal and actually every time we set goals, they're very small. They're not that big. And then something bigger happens. You're like, yeah, well, that was the goal, but I didn't write it down. You know, that happened. So now I set goals, but I'm not attached to them anymore. I'm not attached to them anymore. Because I know that something in that atmosphere is going to happen, like something related to that, but better than I planned could happen.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
So much. Do you know what? I know I've joked about this off and on camera. I'm on the exact same wavelength. And this year I've just completely surrendered to so many things. Like I knew I wanted the podcast to launch, didn't know when. We literally started recording and the production team will agree with me. I had no idea the launch date. I was like, let's just start recording. People would come in the studio, sit in the chair and go, when will this be out? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I was just going with the flow, and it's quite, there's almost like a really relaxed surrender to it where you're like, because I trust that, which sounds, if me 2 years ago be listening to this, she would be rolling her eyes and going, oh, come on, get off it. You know, another trust, surrender to the universe kind of shit. I never would have listened. But there is an honesty within that. And I think, Ros, the journey you've been on, the trajectory you're on, and just seeing how far you've come, obviously speaking is a huge part of what you're doing now. Obviously, it sounds like you did that a lot in the corporate role.
Can't shut me out.
And and now here, and it's just been amazing to see how far you've come. And I'm so excited for your book to go even further. It's
I'm so excited
good
about the book. Yeah, so that's been, again, another way to use your voice. And again, I think I still feel like it links back to when I was, even if it was just for 6 months, I couldn't speak a language. I ended up learning 4. I ended up, speaking is just something I do because if you've been given the gift of voice, then someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe like if I am not on this podcast, or if I didn't write the book, or if I didn't go on stage and speak, I'm holding back what that person needs to hear. And that's a lot of people ask me, like, where'd you get your public speaking confidence from? How are you not afraid of being in front of the camera or the mic or the stage? Let me tell you, you're always afraid. Like, it never goes away. We were talking about this off camera of, I don't like my angles on camera and this. But the minute you make it about the people of what they're receiving, your fear goes away, because it's not about you anymore. It's not about you on stage. You might have like that butterfly in your stomach for the first few seconds, but then all of a sudden you relax into it because you are so focused on the value and delivering the outcome that you want for that person watching. So yeah, there is never a moment where you're like, oh, I'm a public speaker and I never get nervous. I have a look at celebs when they are about to go on stage, right? Beyonce, what does she do backstage? She's not sitting there like, with a cup of tea. She's there like, God, please, help me here today. She has her little routine of how she gets on stage, how she psychs herself up. And, you can tell she's shaking, she's trying to get like all the shakes out of her body. It happens to everybody.
Yeah. That was actually one of my questions for you, Ros. Who would you say you aspire to be like, or who has inspired you on your journey? Who's helped you on the journey?
Who has inspired me? I love Karen Brady. Yeah. Do you know, actually, I didn't know, I forgot I used to do this, but apparently an ex-colleague of mine who I used to work with, like ex colleague, said that when I used to come into the office, this is so cheesy, I can just imagine people in the office looking at me like, what is she doing? Apparently, I used to have like positive affirmations on my screen at work, and I used to have a picture of Karen Brady and like Oprah. That's another person that inspires me. J-Lo massively inspires me. I love Beyonce. So yeah, I used to have like pictures of like these iconic celebs that I used to think, yeah, you're bossing it and you're serious and you're talented, but you've got every bit of personality and sass about you. You're not mainstream. You're really, really putting it out there. So yeah, those I'd say are my big heroes.
I love all the people you've shared because they're very similar to mine, but I love Karen Brady even more because she's actually very similar industry, similar space, kind of came in the route. Like she really, I would say, left the mark in this industry.
Yeah. I love the fact that Karen, my mate Karen, I'm like talking about her like, yeah, so Kaza, she has that like blow dry and the beautiful like office dress and the heels. And she's probably a bit more corporate than I am. I'm a bit more like relaxed and casual, but I love how feminine she is and how like just she's her own woman and can hold a room and really be a boss, like just really know her shizzle. Like that's what I love about powerful and really talented women, is that they worked so hard. They've had to defy every law or every obstacle. And then they walk into a room, you're like, wow. Yeah, I love that about her. Do you know what? Funny story. I've got a, speaking of this like vision board, today, I've made a Canva image of Karen with Alan Sugar, like, you know, in the boardroom, and then I'm next to them. So I've like photoshopped myself in. I don't know what that means. Wow. But just in case this happens, you heard it here first.
I love that.
This is like projecting into the future, like setting I don't know what that means. So sometimes I set goals like that where I've got, for example, a picture of TED Talks, like a circle, you know, the red circle of TED Talks. And then I photoshopped myself on the stage. But yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. Yeah. So I like doing like little funny things like that. So maybe me and Karen will meet.
Yeah, who knows?
It's on the vision board, so...
Have you on The Apprentice? Oh my God, I would totally watch that. That would just be amazing. Definitely. Oh, well, Ros, it's been amazing having you on the show. And you've just, it's such an inspiration to hear you speak. And obviously I've helped you with your book, with publishing your book. So for anyone that's obviously tuning in, it is out now. So if you haven't already got a copy, do grab the Social Media Guide for Mortgage Brokers, which is available. We'll make sure all the links are in all the comments and all the descriptions and so on. But Ros, we have a tradition on the show where the final question for each guest is about finding someone that you know who has an inspiring story that you think we should have on the show next. Who do you know that you would like to recommend for the show?
Oh my gosh, I wish I was prepared for this question. Who do I know that should be on the show? Who do I know that would be on the show? I mean, how big are we going? Are you going celeb?
It's whoever you feel, one, who you feel has an inspiring story, and two, someone that you would happily reach out to and say, you need to get onto this show.
Do you know what? I'm going to nominate my girl, Dani Wallace, because she's, as well as you, have been one of my biggest mentors over the past 6 months, because, you know, you might hire a coach or a nutritionist, but you have been a big coach because you've coached me through the biggest event of my life after my wedding, which was the book. Like, it literally has felt like a wedding, hasn't it? It's like the big ceremony's coming soon. So other than yourself, the next biggest coach in my life has been Dani Wallace, who has been coaching me through elevating my speaker confidence, right? So I've been doing a lot of speaking, but I wanted something more formal and something more structured. And I think the reason I would nominate her is because, again, from that positive pollination point of view, I know how much she is impacting other people to use their voice, and her philosophy is very much aligned with mine. So I'd nominate Dani.
Oh, Dani is such an incredible human being, and I'm very excited to have her on the show. So thank you so much, Ros. It's been amazing. And for everyone who hasn't already found out and got a copy, I do massively recommend you get a copy of Ros's brand new book, The Social Media Guide for Mortgage Brokers, is out now. I'll make sure all the links are in the description and everywhere else that you guys can grab your copy on paperback or Kindle. And I really hope you've enjoyed listening to Ros's inspiring story. It is just so incredible to hear someone go from so many different whirlwinds of a journey, from coming to the UK for the very first time all the way up to doing the amazing things she's doing now. Now, if you haven't already, if you are watching on our YouTube channel, make sure you share in the comments what has been the most inspiring story that you've heard today on the show. Which bit of Rosa's story really resonated with you and why? And obviously, if you haven't already, do make sure you follow and subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on our next inspiring guests. I look forward to seeing you next week.